Hi guys, today I'll be talking about cell and its components. Now, but emphatically, let's start with the history of cell. Now, in 1665, Robert Hooke examined a thin slices of cork tissues under a compound microscope and found that these cork tissues consisted of neatly arranged little chambers of cavities. Now, since each chambers were enclosed by walls similar to cells of honeycomb, now he called these chamber cells. Hooke did not, however, just think that these so-called empty chambers they had living components. Did not, at least as far as his horizon could catch, um, and available equipment at that time or tools, he could not see them. Now, so Hooke ended up just helping us discover that these are cells, and who we call themselves these um, living cork, these chambers he discovered in cork tissue. Now, later on in 1835, Dujardin, who was a French biologist, examined thin slices of living plants under an improved microscope. Now, he discovered that these things had components. This component he called sarcode. 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 So he just called them sarcode, which later we will now call protoplasm. Now, Matthias Linden, later on in 1835, that's 3 years later, he is a German botanist. He carried out an extensive study on the structure of plants, concluded that the plants were composed of cells. So that was all Matthias could deliver to us. Theodor Quandt, later on in 1839, which is a year later, he was a German zoologist. He also was able to carry us into the sphere that animals too had or were made up of cells. So with this, we come to the point that we can say that cell consists of two parts. You have what's called generally we have what's called the protoplasm, which is the living part of the cell, plus the non-living part of the cell. So I'll explain the non-living part. Okay, the living part of the cell. This is where you have the cytoplasm, the cell organelles plus cell organelles. All right, then you so the protoplasm consists of the the cytoplasm consists of the organelles and the nucleus. Now these are the three components of the protoplasm. Now, in other words, they are the living part. I find a word somewhere. It calls it a translucent fluid, which may be colorless, grayish, or fluid. Essentially, it's just grammar. It's a living part of the cell. Now, can you think of something that is missing? Because the cell consists of things like cell wall. So those is not part of the protoplasm. Alright, so you can think that far. Now the next thing is what essentially is a cell. Now from what we'll be talking about, we can say that a cell is a basic structural functional unit of life. Let me put that here and mark this out. A cell is the basic structural functional unit of life. Alright, that means every organism is made up of cells. And this part talk about cell theory. Now, for cell theory, actually, we have different school of thought varying. Well, basically, it's saying that all cell, number one, all cell is made up of all living organism, I mean to say, is made up of cell or cells. Cell unicellular or cells multicellular. Now, structural and functional unit of life. I said one, all organisms are made up of cell. Two, cell is the basic structural functional unit of life. What's into misbehaving today. Then the third one, or third proponent of the cell theory, is that new cells, they arise from pre-existing cell. So taking a recap, we said one cell, every organism contains cells or cell. Number two, we said that it's a structural functional unit of life. And the third one, we can proponent, is that new cells arise from a pre-existing cell. If we have the time, we're going to look at growth, and then you look at how these cells reproduce to give birth to other cells. Then the cycle continues like that. So the next thing we'll talk now, let's talk about the cell components, cytoplasm. Now, all the living materials outside the nucleus in a cell they are enclosed in cytoplasm. It is a semi-fluid-like substance that is present in the cell of an organism. Now, the cytoplasm have things like this. Okay, has things like cell organelles, actually. Now, some scientists try to differentiate them, but that will be left for their line of thought. So, talk about the cell wall. So, what's essential? The cell wall is a non-living outer boundary of the cell that is made up of cellulose. Now, it has tiny pores or pits through which nutrients can pass from one cell to another. Cell wall is actually absent in animal cell. It is only present in plant cell. And one other organelle talk about is the cell membrane. So now the cell membrane is a thin and flexible living layer that surrounds the entire cytoplasm and separates the cell from its neighboring cell. Now, one of the functions is that it regulates the movement of substance in and out of the cell. It protects the cytoplasm. It delimitates the content of the cytoplasm. Now, I think that's all basically. Then, another component quickly is the endoplasmic reticulum. I love this one. Endoplasmic reticulum. Back in those days, they used to speak like it's almost like a grammar to me, and I enjoy calling it. Now, well, it's a system. It's a system of canals found abundantly in the cytoplasm. It is believed that their organelles are interconnected by endoplasmic reticulum. Right? Now, if there are two types, we have the smooth and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. If ribosomes are attached to it, we call it attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, it is called the rough endoplasmic. And if no ribosome are attached, it is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So what's the function? Both the rough and the smooth, I'm just trying to make it fast because of for a better, but try to explain it. As you can see, this is a plant cell. This is an animal cell. You can see that the endoplasmic reticulum look like canals. They look like pathways, right, by which other cell organelles are interconnected. So we have the rough here. Now you can see this diagram magnifies both the rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. But basically, what is this rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum all about? Now, for the rough, yes, they help in the formation of enzymes and protein, right? They transport metabolic products. Another function is that they transport metabolic products. Like I said, they are more like canals, like almost like drainage system, like I used to imagine them. Right? They interconnect the organelles of the cell. Right? They make lipids, both rough and smooth. They make lipids. The enzymes of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, for example, can detoxicate drugs such as morphine and codeine. Alright, so these things are actually key for us to understand. So now let's talk about something that's called the ribosome. That's actually one of my other favorite organelle in the cell. Now, they are actually minute. The ribosome, they are minute. You can see that in the diagram. They are small. They are minute and roughly spherical organelles. They are found in large numbers attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, or it can be suspended in the cytoplasm on its own. They contain roughly equal amounts of ribonucleic acid and protein. Alright, so what they do basically, they make proteins by joining amino acids together. They are sites for protein synthesis. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. Alright, so we'll talk about some next organelle, which is what? The mitochondria. Oh, mitochondria, interesting organelle. Now, the cellular powerhouse is another name for these organelles. Okay, they are tiny rod-shaped bodies or granules that are present in cytoplasm. This is where it's called the powerhouse simply because this is where respiration and other key activities take place. Alright, they are actually center for cellular respirations in which food are oxidized to release energy for the activities of the cell. Now, it's the reason why it is called powerhouse actually. The DNA helps to code the synthesis of protein in mitochondrial membranes. Mitochondria also contain enzymes. Alright? They contain enzymes and deoxyribonucleic acid, which is DNA. The enzymes carry oxidative phosphorylation of adenosine diphosphate and so on. But let me save you the gist. Well, mitochondria is the powerhouse. So we talked about cytoplasm, cell wall, cell membrane, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosome, and mitochondria. Now, I will not leave without mentioning things. One other key component, which is what? The nucleus. The nucleus is I think is one of the center mark of the cell. Alright? What happens there? The nucleus controls directly or indirectly most of the activities of the cell, of a living organism. The removal of the nucleus will result in the death of the cytoplasm. Please take note of that. So we can ask you, which of the following results the death of the cytoplasm? Is the nucleus. That man. The nucleus carries chromosomes, another thing, on which hereditary materials are transferred from parents. Now, when we look at mitosis later, you're going to see the beauty of all of this. Then the nucleus, which contains the nucleolus, produces several kinds of RNA, which are passed out of the nucleus in the cytoplasm to manufacture proteins. Right, so it's actually pretty much straightforward. Right, then there's something I'm leaving out. I feel something I'm leaving out. The Golgi bodies. The Golgi bodies. Now, for the Golgi bodies, we know the Golgi bodies. For the Golgi bodies, there's been a little bit of some scientists aren't clear what's the function, but we know that it's present in cell. Right? It was discovered by an Italian scientist, Camillo Golgi, I think about 100 years or 115 or 20 years ago. They have found the group as flat, tubes, or threads. They are absent in mature sperm and red blood cells. Now, like I said, the functions are not so clear, but they help. We scientists conjecture they help to distribute proteins made by the cell. They may help in the manufacture of lysosome too. I didn't mention that. That's true. Lysosome. Now, if you talk about lysosome, this is one other key component of the cell. Now, it derives its name from lysis. Alright? Lysis. Now, lysis. Let me use this pen so that you get. Okay. Lysis, which means breakdown. They're actually minute and rounded bodies containing enzymes found in animal cells. What did they do? Number one, they destroy worn-out parts of cells by discharging enzymes into them and thereby clearing the area for a healthy new cell to grow. Number two, enzymes released by lysosome destroy bacteria and cells. And the third thing is, lysosome discharge enzymes to degenerate tissues, causing the breakdown of the cell. For example, the absorption of the tail of tadpoles when it is changing to the adult is caused by lysosome. You can see how great these things are. So, yes, my goodness, vacuoles. Oh, you see, vacuoles. Now, vacuoles, they're actually found in plant cells. Majorly, they are very large in plant cells, but when they occur in animal cells, they are actually very small. You can see. Let me take you here. If you go to, let's go to our diagram vacuoles. You can see. Okay, I can see. Good. Now, vacuoles are this central vacuole, so large, so big in plant cell. Why in animal cell? If they are present, is it present in this diagram? I guess I can see it. Alright, I don't think it is. Or maybe I can't see it very well. They are actually present in small amount, if at all they are present. It's surrounded by membrane called the tonoplasm. We'll talk about this for our subsequent, if time permits us. The cells have, what are the functions basically? The cells have is osmotic in function. It stores nutrients and waste product. So you can see that. So that means technically that most plants produce more waste product than the animal in quotes. So in a way, their vacuoles are very large. So you can imagine the function of it. So that's all basically, guys. I do not wish to extend this video beyond this point, but I hope we get the point. We're able to understand all of these things. Please do well to subscribe so we can produce more video, and be encouraged, and share with friends and click the like button. Thank you. I'll see you soon.